In this video, we'll be talking about rendering and lighting. So before we get into anything else, just make sure to come over here to the render properties and make sure that you have Eevee selected. We're going to be discussing the render engines a bit later on, but what you need to know for now is this. Eevee is a real-time render engine, while Cycles requires more time to render. Eevee is closer to what you'll be getting within a game engine rather than Cycles. Cycles is meant for photorealistic imagery, while Eevee is meant for working in real time. The sampling settings, we're going to go over those as well at some point, but what you need to know pretty much is that these are your quality settings. The higher the number, the better the quality is going to be, but the slower the time it will take to render out things. We'll also be going over these things right here, but in due time. So now let's set up our scene. I'm going to add a cube to the scene, or rather something that's going to look a bit more fancy. I'm going to add a monkey. And I'm also going to add a subdivision modifier to it so that it looks more smooth. And I'm going to use the shade smooth option here for the monkey. I'm also going to go over here and move the monkey a little bit upwards, just so it's above the ground plane. Maybe put it somewhere like here. And let's put another object. I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to edit this cube a little bit. I'm going to make it look like a postament so that we actually have something interesting to look at while we're rendering. This won't take long. So what I want to have here is basically some surfaces that can kind of have cast shadows on them and things of that sort. That's why we're going to doing this. Okay, something like this maybe. And I'm going to put a bevel modifier on this. So we have decent edges. I'm going to press shade smooth on it. Now let's position the monkey over here. Something that would maybe look nice if placed on the postament. Rotate this just a bit. And now we have it sort of placed over here. Awesome. Let's shrink this just a bit. Move it up. I'm gonna rotate the monkey just a tiny bit more. Move these things up. Cool. So this is what we're going to be working with. I'm going to apply transforms to both of these. So now let's take a look at what we have in terms of rendering options over here. We're going to look at these things. So firstly, we have the wireframe shading, which gives you the wireframe of the objects. This is something that we won't be using for actual rendering with lighting, but just is a nice option to see. If you go down through this menu here, you're going to see that we have X-ray enabled. You can toggle through this whichever way you like. For example, here you can change the viewport settings and whatnot. Yeah. But basically these are the settings for the wireframe. Here we have the shaded viewport. Here you can choose between a couple of materials to visualize your object. This is the studio materials. These are the matte cap materials. This is a flat surface. You can also choose between vertex, color, textures. I've shown some of these in previous lessons. We won't be going over them in detail. You can come over here and sort of tweak however you want things to look. Next is the material viewport. So what we want to do here is maybe put on some materials on these. So let's come over here, create a material. We're going to call this monkey. Let's have it be a shade of gray. Something, for example, like this. And maybe just a little bit in the reddish section. Let's have it be a bit more metallic. I want to have kind of like nice highlights. Maybe increase the specularity a bit and reduce the roughness just a tad. Something like this. And for this one, let's have a postament material. We want to have it be darker. Something like this maybe. We want to have it be really rough, like some sort of a stone, for example. And we want to have it not be as specular, so that it picks up on the nice shadows from the monkey. Okay, so now that we've set up the materials, I've shown you these settings in the material section. Let's go over to the rendered section, right here, this one. And as you can see, everything looks really dull, really dark. That's because we don't have any lighting in the scene whatsoever. It's pretty much gone, it's disabled. So right now what we want to do is start to add some lighting to the scene. I'm going to press Shift A to create some lights, and we're going to go to the lighting section. And what you can see here is that we have point light, sun, spot, and area lights. Let's start off with the sun because it's the most natural light that we can have. And what you can see here is that we have the sunlight created. It has a bunch of settings to it. So it has color, it has strength, it has diffuse, specular, volume. We're going to tweak this. So it even has lighting settings. We're going to enable contact shadows as well, so we can see more richly what's going on here. So let's start off with the color. So this is the color that you want your sunlight to have. That's depending on what you actually want to achieve. That may be something bluish, more orange. Just know that it has a really severe tint to your objects, so you might want to choose wisely what kind of color you want for this. The most important thing you need to know is the angle. This is the angle at which your sun is. That means from where it sets, from where it starts. So let's change it to something really dramatic, like 180 degrees. Now you can see that the monkey is barely getting any light. Let's go to 90. And you can see that right now it's pointing from here. You can see that the shadow is really confused right now because it needs time to calculate. Let's go to something like maybe 30. And now you can see that it points from here. Specular detail is really clear on what exactly is going on. Now let's go to something like 270. Boom. If we start scrolling, you can see the actual differences. Let's go to 30 because it's more visible. And let's start tweaking the strength. The stronger this is, the more overexposed your light is going to be. If we go to say 10, you can see that it's burning right now. It's really, really hot. Well, if we go to something like 0.5, you can see that it's barely lit. Usually a good setting would be something which gives you a nice information about the volumes, but doesn't overburn the original colors. Now, let's talk about the shadows. If we increase the bias, you can see pretty much what's becoming with these shadows over here. It starts to overextend. If you really decrease it, you can see that it becomes tighter. Usually something like 1 would do. So this is what we have pretty much in terms of the sun. We can tweak it here additionally if we want to, like we can put it up. Moving it positionally won't do much for us, or rotating it, because it's a global thing, but still you can see that it's affecting the monkey. So that's something that you can still work with. Now you can see that the sun is pointing directly at the monkey. Which gives us a nice lighting on the monkey itself. So let's delete this and start to tweak over the more unnatural light sources. Let's go to a point light. So putting this up here, you can see how this works. Having something like this, it has pretty much the exact same settings as the sun. Only thing is it measures its power in watts. So 10 watts is something pretty weak. A 60 watt is a standard light bulb, so you can see what's going on. This is usually something that you would use to create more dramatic effects. I'm going to duplicate it so you can see what happens when we start to stack lights one on top of the other. And again, you have shadows, contact shadows, pretty much the exact same settings as the sun, except for one very important setting, which is the radius. The more I increase the radius, the more the power decreases, but the coverage extends. So you can see that now the monkey is way less lit in terms of strength, but it covers way more from the actual monkey. So if we increase this, we also need to increase the power. Okay, let's go over another light. It's the spotlight. So the spotlight is like it's like projecting light at the object. It has a cone, which you can see right here. You need to point it at the particular object that you're trying to light. You can adjust the cone. And the spotlight works pretty much in the exact same manner that the point light works. It works with watts. It requires something way more extensive if you want to light something in an interesting fashion. So let's go 300 here. And you can see that if I tweak this, it changes the cone. The smaller the cone, you see the less lighting we get. It's like projecting light on top of the monkey. Using spotlights is great for stuff like, for example, 3-point lighting, where you have one light at 45 degrees like this, pointing at the thing, maybe at a lower angle. And you can also change the way you're rotating these with the global, normal, all of these settings that we've seen in the past. So Let's say that we have this one right here. And it's our most powerful light. Let's add another one at the other end. Going to be way weaker in terms of actual power output. Let's rotate this. And let's set it at something like, for example, 100. And you can see that it starts to fill the form over here. Let's set it to 150. Maybe give it a color, something cold. Maybe give this a color, something warm. And you can see how things sort of start to get along here with the lighting. What we can also do here is add an area light. And the area light works in the exact same fashion as the other ones. So let's pull this up. And you can see how this one works. It lights really firmly. So I'm going to put this behind the monkey. I'm going to use it as a rim light. Let's rotate this. And we're going to increase the area in which it's lighting by using this right here. It's going to increase its size. And let's increase the power to say 50. So it gives us this really distinct rim lighting. 30 would do better, I think. Okay. So now we have the monkey. How do we render this out? What's going to happen if we press the render button, which is F12? Oops. No, camera found in scene. So in order for us to make this an actual image, we need to do the final thing, and that's add a camera. So Shift A, camera. What you're going to notice here is that we've created the camera. It's pointed at an angle. That's the way it's actually created. So let's move it back. Pardon me, I'm going to, yeah. Let's move it up. Let's move it back. Down a little bit. Yeah. If you want to actually see what the camera is viewing, you can press this button right here, the camera view button. We can see that right now it's viewing very little from the actual scene. So let's rotate it a bit. Cool. Now we have an actual view of the monkey. So let's press F12. And you can see that we have our rendered image. So this image is rendered with Eevee. This is the real-time sort of rendering procedure that we have. If you want to save this image, you can go from Image, Save As, and this is going to be basically your render. It's better than actually making a screenshot, so we can save it, call it whatever we want, blah blah blah, save image as. Now, this is when working with Eevee. If we increase these settings, for example, if we go to 128, this is going to increase the quality of our render. It's barely visible right now because Eevee doesn't really produce photoreal renders. But when it starts to become way more visible is when we go to cycles, which we will do eventually. So right now, let's keep this scene the way it is. I'm going to save it so we can move over with it into other lessons. Let's call it something interesting like lighting the monkey. And we'll continue from here in the next lesson.